What's up, guys? Welcome back to Fishy Hour. Today we have a special guest. I'll tell you all about him after this intro music. Welcome back, guys. Today's Thursday. You're watching Fishy Hour, and Thursdays now we're gonna do interviews with local fishing celebrities, heroes, just kidding. People that are local here to San Diego, or maybe not, that are making an extra effort to get better at fishing, and that are willing to join us on the show and tell us about their techniques, also their methodology for fishing, and should be a good time. Our guest today is Chris Blevins. I keep saying his name with the E instead of the L, but it's Blevins. Blevins. Chris Blevins is our guest today. I'm gonna have him come on the show in a little bit, and we're gonna do the traditional soda opening with him on the screen. So let's have him. Let's bring him up here on the other screen. Let me bring him up real quick. Let's see. There it is. I had this planned out, and it always doesn't go smooth as it does in my mind. Okay, so let's see. So, guys, I want you guys to welcome Chris Blevins to the show. Chris, you are on. There we go, split screen. There you are. Welcome, Chris. Let me turn up your volume. All right, Chris, can you hear us?
Yep, I got you.
Awesome.
What's up, Roman? Thanks for having me on, man.
No, this is exciting. I'm excited to have you on. Okay, so you're full screen. Let me go split screen with you. There we go, split screen. Cool. All right, guys, so today we're going to shorten up the intro music a little bit just to get right into the episode. I want to take as much time as we can, get right into the good stuff. So, Chris, how you doing?
Oh, man, I'm doing well. I've been doing well. You know, I've been working out, or excuse me, not working out. I've been working pretty much full time throughout the last couple, not doing that. No, a quarantine bod right now.
Oh, no.
But no, I've been working through all this stuff that's been going on. So I've been staying busy, been getting on the water here and there. You know, I could probably get out once or twice a week lately, but so it's been good.
So pretty good.
Yeah, and we just had our first son, our first kid, so we're super stoked about that. He's 4 months old.
Oh, wow. Congratulations. Yeah,
that's been an adventure. Yeah.
It's your first.
But my wife's awesome. It's our first one. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, 4 months is like still, you're past like the initial, like, I remember when we had our first kid, the initial couple of nights where you're like, oh, you gotta make sure stay up all night and make sure they're still breathing all night. It's just a trip. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, we're like in the sweet spot now where he's super cute and he sleeps a little bit, but he still can't like crawl or run away from us.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's good.
Like we're enjoying the sweet spot right now.
Awesome. Yeah, my favorite is when they fall asleep on your chest before they get too heavy.
Oh man.
Yeah. And I always thought it was fun to burp them. Like when you feed them and you kind of just patting their little back until they burp. It's hilarious.
He really likes the burp. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I'm so proud. So proud.
Awesome. Cool. So we're going to get right into it.
Yeah.
So the way I like to structure these interviews is I like to do kind of like your angler journey, right? Kind of like we'll start off with how when did you start fishing at all? Like not kayak fishing, but just fishing that you remember saying, hey, I like this, I'm going to get into this.
Yeah. So I don't even remember. I was pretty young. I think, so the story is that the first fish that I caught, I went with my granddad and my dad to Shelter Island Pier, and I actually caught a halibut like on the first time that I ever went fishing on the pier, and it was like a keeper, and we kept it and took it home. Like I barely remember this, but so yeah, I was pretty lucky that my dad and my granddad and they were into fishing, and my family's kind of an outdoorsy family. I grew up in Lakeside, East County, San Diego originally, so.
Okay, cool.
You guys and your listeners probably know that there's a ton of lakes and stuff out there, and the San Diego River and stuff. So mostly grew up doing freshwater stuff,
Awesome.
out there on like, El Cap Reservoir and San Vicente and the sand pits. But, and then probably got back into ocean fishing, in my like teenage years. Like I said, I was lucky. My dad was, he was into ocean fishing as like a family kind of, family tradition, so he had a boat.
Okay, there you go. Yep.
When I was a kid, yeah. So he had this old Sea Ray, like this old boat, and we used to take it out. And we went down to the Coronados a couple times. I think got my first yellowtail down there when I was like 10 or 12 or
Oh, geez,
something.
nice.
So
That's awesome.
super lucky to have that, situation growing
That's good.
up.
That's good. Well, give me a
Yeah.
sec. Let's. I know I got a little bit ahead of myself there. I noticed I forgot to
No worries.
crack open my drink. So you have your drink ready?
All right, let's do it. Let's
Okay,
do
here
it.
we
Yeah,
go.
I do.
So they're gonna rate us on style for drink opening, I guess.
Yeah. Are we
Here we
going
go,
at the
guys.
same time?
Yeah, you go. No, go ahead and go first, or I can
All
go
right, I got
first.
Pliny the Elder here.
There you go. That's
See if
a
I
real
can.
drink. Oh,
You're
almost,
not gonna hear the bottle.
Yeah, you're not gonna get the bottle pop. That's pretty good. All right, we'll just do mine real quick. There it goes. Guys, give a rating between 1 and 10, or 1 through 10. Here we go. Here's mine. I got the advantage of the can.
Ooh,
Man,
that one had some pop.
That pop is the advantage, yeah, for sure. Oh, all right. Some people are agreeing with the beer. What are you guys drinking online, guys? Let us know. Cool. And then we're gonna jump right back into the interview. Alyssa says that's a good beer. Right on. Oh, hey, Alyssa, nice to have you on. What's up, April? Man, huh? Chris is pulling the ladies. Nice.
So this is a special cup here, you guys. This is a cup that I won as a trophy at the last La Jolla tournament. I think the last one was in 2017.
Go full screen. Give me a second. There you
Yeah.
go. Hold it up in the middle.
Yeah, you probably can't
you can see
it, but it was the James Leibowitz Memorial Tournament back in 2017, and
very nice.
It was a super cool event, and there was actually a bunch of yellowtail caught that year, and I actually won. So this cup was my trophy.
Cool. We will go over the story of that day if that's cool.
Oh yeah, okay. Sorry, I didn't know you already. Yeah,
no,
okay.
no, it's good. It's perfect. That's a good segue. So, you know what, guys, we're gonna kind of just jump around and whatever comes up, and when I feel like we got to the end of a good point, we'll take it back to the beginner days. But for now, let's jump into the story of the mug. So set the scene. What was the event?
Oh yeah, right. So 2017. I mean, it used to be. I think a while back there was a La Jolla tournament like every year. I think of some sort, and it was kind of organized around different. I think there was a couple different memorials that it was for. And the last one I believe was the James Leibowitz Memorial, and it was dedicated to him. I think 2 or 3 years.
Awesome.
And so yeah, the fishing was pretty good that year. And there was a bunch of yellowtail caught, and I kind of pulled one out like at the last minute, late in the morning, and ended up taking it home. I think there's a video of the tournament. Let's see, not to jump too far ahead, but if you guys have ever heard of the Fisherman's Belly, Yanni, shout out to Yanni. I think he has a video on his channel of the tournament and like us posing with the fish.
Oh, cool.
And like them making up some tacos and stuff.
Ooh.
So. Yeah, so it's a cool video if you guys check that out. But it was super cool and good turnout. Bunch of people caught fish, and I ended up actually not to jump right to the spoiler, but I ended up beating Kevin in that tournament. So
let's leave that.
Sorry about that, Kevin.
Let's leave that as a tease. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that full story in detail towards the end. Okay, but so let's talk about what led up to the day when you finally beat Kevin Oscar.
Oh well, yeah.
So let's do this. Oh, cheers, guys.
Sorry, guys.
Happy Thursday. Happy interview day. The more he drinks, the better his stories are gonna get. So I'm trying to get him liquored up.
I just keep jumping to the end of the story too.
No, it's okay. It's okay. All right. So you started fishing. You started pretty young. That's pretty young. 10 when you got your first yellowtail. That's awesome.
I think so. Yeah, it was like I said, it's lucky, man.
Okay.
It's just thankful for the my family growing up and stuff.
So did your pops pretty much? I mean, I'm sure he took you under his wing and taught you like some stuff. Like, what's some of the best advice your dad gave you as far as like fishing goes?
Well, it was mostly just like the love of the ocean and spending time on the water. And like, when you're a little kid, it's kind of freaky getting out there and you kind of get over that, especially like you're a diver, getting over that kind of initial fear when you're in the water is pretty big and it's important to do like maybe younger is easier.
Yeah.
So that was probably the biggest thing was just my fear of the ocean kind of turning into a love of it and like kind of enjoying that. It's, the diving, the fishing, all the different aspects of it. And so, but that was like back in the 80s and early 90s. So like most of the tactics and like we didn't have fish finders, we didn't have sonar. Most of the tactics that I use today is nothing like what I did back in those days. Yeah. We were pretty much just trolling rapalas and fishing sardines on fly lines and doing some irons here and there. That kind of stuff.
That makes sense. Okay, that's cool. I dig it. I dig it. Let's see. So what year do you think you started fishing off a kayak? Like what what drove you to make the decision to start fishing from a
Yeah.
kayak?
Yeah. It was like probably 2006,
Okay.
2007, something like that.
Okay.
And it was actually my friend who I went to high school with. And some people may know. I don't know. Oh, there's a bunch of people in the chat. Shout out to everybody who's in the chat right now.
Yeah.
But
What up, guys?
the La Jolla Scallywag, my friend Jeremiah, who I
Such a good name.
grew up with, he was kind of a troll on the internet forums, but he's
Uh-huh.
a really good guy. And he like got a couple of Hobies way back in those early days. I think he had like some tandem outfitters or something,
Mm-hmm.
and we would take out his tandem outfitters, and we had the bait tank was like up in the front seat, and no fish finder or anything. And I think that was like around '07 we finally got into the Hobie, and then and that was like my first fishing kayak was borrowing my friend's Hobie.
Yeah.
And then I ended up the next kayak I got was a paddling kayak, was a Malibu X Factor. So,
Okay.
but when you first start, there was not like a whole lot of information. There's web forums and stuff, but it was mostly just us going out there and having no idea what we were doing and getting super excited if we caught anything. That's how everybody goes. You start.
Yeah.
You just go
It's
out
true.
there and just kind of explore around and kind of figure out what your own style is.
No, that's good. That's cool. All right. So then you're going out with your friend on a tandem kayak, and you guys are hooking up. You guys are getting fish.
I probably didn't catch my first yellowtail for like 3 or 4 years after I
Oh
started
wow.
kayak fishing.
That's a long time. That's commitment.
It was commitment. And there was a bunch of other stuff in there, like sharks and other bycatch. I think I caught a black sea bass before I ever got a yellowtail.
Well,
But when it finally came, it was like a 10-pounder, and I was so happy. It was just like the moment of I was like, yes, claiming it, 10-pounder. Yeah.
Do you
It's
remember?
awesome.
Do you remember any details of that day?
I just remember that it was like, man, things change so quickly out there. I remember just like, at that point, I'm just kind of blind, trolling around the fly line, maybe casting like a spoon or like a sumo jig or something. But I actually did see some like surface action a little bit in front of me, and I was like, wow, that's weird. Like, I don't really know what that was. And the next second, the next minute, the fly line goes off, and it was.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it was crazy, and like I hadn't landed a fish before, so getting the gaff and like knowing what to do with the pedals and all this, it was quite an extravaganza.
Quite a show, yeah.
But I was so happy. And it was very memorable actually. And I was like, in the days I had no gear, I was wearing like a snowboard jacket
Nice.
and like some like Gore-Tex like army cargo pants. That was my outfit, and I had like a borrowed pole and just like some 30-pound mono and a hook and a mackerel, and I got it.
Dude,
that's
cool.
all you really need.
That's just it makes sense. Yeah, and like gotta get out there, right?
Yeah, like getting comfortable out there even, and just so you can, like you said, like the dedication of doing it time and time again, and not getting super bored with it and getting distracted by other stuff,
Right. Cool. So from there, you caught your first yellow, about 10 pounds. What was the reaction like at home? Or
Let's see. At that time, I was living in an apartment in PB, so I think we cut it up in my friend's alley in PB, and like we're kind of like splashing around. I think he had one too, and we were kind of splashing around some guts and stuff in the alley. I don't think the neighbors were super stoked on us, but like we were having a great time, And usually, I'll have a beer or two for celebration and hang out in the alley,
nice.
cut it up, eat some sashimi. But it was the feeling. It was so much more satisfying just being alone on the kayak and getting it yourself, catching it and eating it. Just the whole process is super satisfying.
That's funny. That's funny. Let's see. Kevin's on here saying squid glory days. That's funny.
Yeah, that was like, well, and that's the thing too, is like I was so lucky in the time when I started. It was like the real squid days hadn't really started yet, that everyone like talks about, the good old days. Like I guess that would be starting in like maybe late 08, 09, 2010, 2011. The beds moved around a little bit. It wasn't in La Jolla the whole time. It was up and down the coast. But it was really lucky because I get started and I just kind of get my first yellowtail. I'm like, all right, this is fun. And it's like, oh, well, there's all this squid around. And then it was kind of like a real fast learning curve where, when the right bait's around and when the fish are swimming through pretty consistently, you can you can learn a lot in a short amount of time if you're just staying dedicated
yeah.
to the same tactics, you know, and
Yeah.
going back and doing the same thing day in, day
Well,
out.
yeah, for those of us that weren't around in that era, what was the tactic? What was the technique there?
Well, like, so obviously you had to be able to make the live squid, which they don't always want to like eat your sabiki, or they're not always easy to make. Sometimes you have to like have a light out in the water at nighttime.
Oh, so
But
got there extra early.
yeah, but when the bait would get really thick and there would still be no real big fish around, but once they started keying in out and biting it, it didn't really matter. You could have frozen squid.
Oh,
You could have just like a dead squid that was in the sun half the day, like spinning in a circle on your hook, and it didn't really matter. They swim through and they bite it.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of dropper loop fishing and stuff, you know. So it's get out there at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., try to make some bait in the dark, and then try to have your dropper loop down in the right zone, kind of as the sun's coming up. They swim through a couple times,
and you're good to go.
You maybe catch a fish, and then you go in. It hasn't been like that in a long time, so it's tough to say that it's that easy, because it really isn't that easy. But there are times.
That's what it feels like. That's what it's like when it's good. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So, and that was like kind of weird, where there was just so much volume of it, and I think it was a colder water cycle at that time. Before. I think the max water temps that we were getting in the middle of the summer was like 68, 69, maybe touching 70 for the surface.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool, for the summertime, whereas the years where we were getting bluefin, there was, it's like 75, 76.
It's crazy.
Water.
It's a trip. It's a trip.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, okay, so let's keep it going. That first 10-pound yellow, was that on your own kayak, or is that still on the tandem?
That was on the borrowed tandem. Right. That was on Jeremiah's
borrowed
tandem outfitter.
But you were running it alone.
Dude, there's a video. He has a video on his YouTube. Perfect. He probably doesn't want me directing traffic to his YouTube channel, but there's a video of it, and it's I want to say it's from 2009 or 10 is when the video's from.
Also, since we're still early in the interview, tell us what your channel is so people can go check you out too.
My channel is just Chris Blevins. Just Chris Blevins, just my name.
And after this video posts, I will add your card at the end of the video so people can go find you. Cool.
Okay, great,
awesome.
Great, yeah.
So that's cool. So so that was on a borrowed kayak. What was your first kayak that you actually went and bought specifically for fishing?
Let's see. So I had one kind of loaned to me for a while. That was kind of mine. But then the first one that I bought was probably when I bought a Malibu X Factor. And I had a brand new one from OEX, and I was so stoked. And like X Factor is a pretty sweet boat. It was a heavy weight capacity, but the hull's super light.
Okay.
It tracks okay. It's just kind of like a big battleship, but it was good for fishing for bigger fish.
That's cool, yeah.
And so I had a Malibu X Factor, and I had my own bait tank that I built, and I had like two versions of the bait tank that I built. And then I had, a small fish finder on there, and it was set up pretty good. You could see that X Factor in some of my earliest videos that are like from like 2015 or somewhere in there.
Perfect.
You could see that X Factor, and that might have been the first one that I like bought with my own money and didn't like borrow for an extended time from some.
You borrowed it long enough, like, yeah, just keep it. That's good.
Yeah. And that might have been like 2012 or something when I bought that one, I want to say.
That's cool. That's awesome. Okay, so what about what was your best fish on that kayak?
On that one? That one was actually, I had a borrowed X Factor before that I got a big white sea bass on.
Oh, cool.
But on that first Malibu X Factor that I bought, I actually caught a yellowtail on the very first trip that I went on.
Oh, nice.
And it was like, it was so crazy. And I was like, all right, this boat is lucky. Get it on the first trip. Are you kidding me? It was so crazy.
Like nothing to do with my skills. It's all about the luck with this boat. That's funny.
I think the biggest one on that boat was a 52 pounder white.
Wow, jeez.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And that was just like fly lining over submerged kelp, like kind of semi blindly. I was just looking for the bait and kind of drifting where the bait was. Yeah. The bait was kind of feeding on the surface, not really too scared, but then you see the bait kind of get agitated, and I kind of had my mackerel, greenback mackerel, kind of suspended just above the submerged kelp, and that's when I ended up getting
that's crazy,
a 52 pounder on that boat. Trip. That's
crazy.
And that's you got to have braid in those situations because the fish just goes straight in the kelp. So, if you don't have braid,
and so that makes sense. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm trying to get
No, it's all
I'm trying
good.
to get as much details and value for the guys watching.
Sure.
Say some. I know this has happened a long time ago, but kelp is kelp, right? And a setup is still a
Yeah,
setup. So you'd want the similar setup nowadays
for sure.
to cut through kelp, right? So can you give us a little
For
bit of
sure.
details as far as like what the rigging was like hook, line, leader, all that
Yeah,
stuff?
sure. Sure. Like a lot of my tackle that I use is not super expensive stuff. Like I really like Shimano TLD 15 lever drag. You could get one.
Mm,
I don't have any affiliations with any companies whatsoever, so this is just whatever. But like a TLD 15 from Squidco is like $100 or $110, and you can get it spooled up with 65-pound braid,
mm,
green, 65-pound Power Pro, um, and just put it all the way on the bottom. Like 3/4 of the way full with 65-pound braid, and
nice.
then you can either fish straight braid to a leader or like a top shot type of deal. So in that scenario where you're really close to kelp, it
Mm-hmm.
would be pretty much straight 65-pound braid to a fluorocarbon leader, 40 pounds, and then a ring circle hook, a
Perfect.
bigger, probably 4/0,
Yeah, that
a
makes
pretty
sense.
big one. And, you're scaling it to the size of your bait,
Yeah.
but usually 3 or 4/0 pretty much going to work for all the greenbacks that we're really trying
So
to fish with.
if you're trying to outfit your tackle box, you'd buy size 3 4 aught ring hooks, which means they have a little hook, they have a little ring instead of an
Yeah,
eyelet, right? So you tie onto
right,
the ring, and the bait has more flexibility to move around, right?
right, exactly.
Cool. And then
Yeah,
you want the braid because that braid is going to cut through the kelp if you do catch on a big fish, and that first thing that fish is going to do is it's going to make a run for the
yeah, they'll go straight down
yeah.
into it and just get wrapped up into it, and you
Hmm.
got to kind of saw through it.
Okay. Great.
And the other thing about that is when you're fishing straight braid, uh, fluorocarbon not so much, but monofilament will give you a lot of stretch, and you
Mm,
get kind of this rubber band effect.
yeah.
When you're fishing a lot of straight braid and a short fluoro leader, you don't have much line stretch at
At
all.
all. Yeah.
So a sea bass has big head shakes back or big tail thumps, or they just turn around towards you, and your rod goes straight, then you have slack line really easily. So you want to fish a lighter action rod if you're fishing straight spectra, in my opinion. Like I'll fish like a medium action or maybe a medium heavy, a little noodlier, so it's kind of soaking up those head shakes, especially if it's stuck in the kelp and and then you pop through a strand,
Oh
you're gonna have
yeah.
slack in your line right away.
That's
So
the
you want to
second. Yeah.
have as much bend in that thing as you can. So when it pops, hopefully you have some tension left after it re-engages or tightens up.
That's a very good point. It's a very good point. Cool. Yeah, it's interesting because you think of you have to think of the whole system, right? The line, if the line has no stretch, then you want to have a little bit of that give in the rod. That makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah. And the nicer rods out there that are just made for braid, they work amazing, or parabolic rods and all this, but you don't, I think ugly stick tiger, ugly stick tiger, 7 foot medium action. It's a great rod for fishing straight braid.
Awesome.
Super noodly, and you can get one for like $40 or $50 or
It is
something.
like the best. That's a really good price for a setup to get a white sea bass or yellowtail on. That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, and they have like a no questions asked warranty. So like I don't know. It's definitely not the most sensitive thing ever, but they're durable. And if you're pulling on a big heavy fish, that's one thing. And now if you need a lot of sensitivity, or if you want to try to cast the thing, that's kind of a different
Yeah, it's a
story.
different
But for
story. Yeah,
fishing live bait, works great.
that's cool. That's interesting. I like that. I like that. Right on. Okay, so and guys, just I forgot to mention this at the beginning of the show. Stick around. Make sure you share the stream with your friends if you're finding this entertaining and useful. And I will be asking Chris your questions towards the end of the show. So maybe the last 15 minutes. And if he's still around, if he still wants to stick around, and you guys still have questions, we'll keep going until either you guys run out of questions or Chris runs out of steam. All right, so that's a quick update. Cool. All right, so let's keep it going. Okay, and also just to make sure, like, don't feel like you gotta share all of your secrets here. Okay, it's just it's okay to say like, oh, I'd rather not say that specific piece, but you give other stuff. Okay, so don't
Sure,
feel like you have
sure,
to.
of course.
Yeah, cool. So okay, so you got your new so you said that before you bought the new your first actual kayak, you had already caught white sea bass before that. What Do you remember the weight on that one?
52.
Oh, jeez, that's awesome.
52 or 54 or something like that.
Yeah.
It's a big one.
Yeah, that's a nice one.
And that was with no fish finder and a bait tank. My bait tank was just a milk crate with like a big water jug in it and a hole cut in it, and I just pumped water in with a bait pump.
Oh, like every once in a while you come back there and just pump it with your hand?
Yeah, you just pump it in there, and like you can just overflow it every once in a while and give them a little bit of fresh water.
Yeah.
You can only probably keep 2 or 3 baits lively like that. You're not going to be carrying a full tank of bait. But
hey, but if you're gonna try this and you don't want to invest too much money, you want to see how it's gonna be. That's really good. That's really good.
I mean, it's just simple, and you can keep 2 or 3 baits pretty lively there, and just a bilge pump and a milk crate with a tank in it. You probably do okay.
So good. See, guys, what I'm seeing here is you have that motivation and that desire to get out there, right? Like you could have said like, oh, I don't have a bait tank. Oh, I don't have a fish finder. Oh, I don't have a kayak. And like, but you made it happen. You wanted to go out there and fish, and you made it happen. So that's really cool. I thought it was cool to just highlight that. Cool. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, it's so hard to do that until you've gotten the first one.
Yeah.
Right? Because like you don't have confidence in yourself. You don't know that, like, you're second guessing yourself. But then as soon as it all comes together for you, it just gives you so much more confidence to just go day after day. And you just have this feeling, and maybe it's not even true, but you feel like you could just go do that same thing in that same zone, and you just have confidence in that tactic. And the more you kind of have successes, even little successes, you'll try to key in on those same conditions or the same tactics then. And it's just super satisfying. It's like a puzzle that you're solving, like
that makes sense. Yeah, it feels like you're figuring it out. That's good.
And you have that one success, and it's just going to propel you to the point where you're like, it'll probably make you blind to other opportunities once you have that super confidence in the thing that you were doing,
Yeah, that's where you got to start branching out from use a different technique. Yeah. Sorry, I'm gonna interrupt you for a little bit. Is there a light you can turn on?
Yeah. Let me see. Hold on. Getting dark.
Yeah, no worries. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Let me. Actually, you know what? Probably the best thing is.
I'm gonna give you a couple minutes. I'll talk to the audience for a second.
Okay, cool.
What's up, guys? It looks super fun, right? It's good. You can still hear me. I'm just kidding, guys. But I hope you're enjoying the show. It's he's getting his lights turned on, so I think it's like, I can't believe it's like 7:30 and it's still not dark yet. Super cool. I think the last time we finished the show at 8 o'clock and there was still a little bit of light out. So exciting. All right, and he's back.
Is that better?
Oh yeah, way better.
Okay, good.
We can see you. Cool. You're no longer anonymous. I'm gonna stop blurring your voice too. I'm just kidding.
That's all good. My whole name is my YouTube channel, so it's not like I'm like hiding behind some anonymity. Same with you.
That's hilarious. So good. Cool. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the tools of the trade. So not necessarily rods and reels or kayaks. I'm talking about sonars and fish finders and all that stuff that could very easily go down into a whole different rabbit hole about like what's the best fish finder, all that kind of stuff. What I want to know is, are we using it the right way? Like, how do you use your fish? You fish with the fish finder now, right?
Yeah, for sure. I have and like I said, I have no affiliation with any companies, but I have 2 Lowrance units. I have an Elite 7 Ti on my Kraken, and I have an Elite 7 Ti2 on my Pro Angler.
Wait. Pause that. Time out. Yeah, you have a Kraken and a Pro Angler?
Yeah.
Me too. That's good.
Right on, man. Well, I like to switch it up, And
That's
also
cool.
my wife is also a kayak fisher angler as well, and she will switch off between either one too, depending on which she feels like fishing. Too.
Okay, that's cool. All right, sorry to interrupt. Let's keep it going.
No, that's all good. So I have essentially the same fish finder on both units. It's really kind of helpful to know the user interface and all that, but it's also, that unit is a good price for what it can do. Like, I really like the touchscreen, but you definitely don't need it. So your question was, what am I doing wrong? That's a pretty good question.
Not necessarily what are we doing wrong. It's just like what do you feel important information you're getting from your fish finder?
So probably the most basic thing that will help you right away is in La Jolla anyway, is having the right fishing with the right frequency, right? So typically the Lowrance units that people are fishing have 83 kilohertz frequency and 200 kilohertz, right? And they would consider that middle and high, right? Some also have 50 kilohertz. That's even lower, right? 50 kilohertz is low, 83 mid, 200 is high. The lower the frequency is, the better performance the sonar will have in deep water. It can penetrate and see into deep water better the lower the frequency is.
Okay, that sounds good. What do you consider deep water?
I would say over 100 feet deep.
Got it. Perfect. Okay.
So if you're in more than 100 feet deep and you're using 200 kilohertz, then you're probably, if you're in greater than 100 feet deep, then I would say 83 kilohertz. If you have a Lowrance unit, Garmin units, I believe, use 77 kilohertz for their middle frequency. And then 50 kilohertz is also common. Any of those is good for fishing that deeper water, deeper than 100 feet.
Very good. That makes sense. Perfect. Yeah, because we're actually having a discussion about this a couple days ago on the Discord. People were busting out their calculators. It was pretty funny. But yeah, that's very important. That makes sense. Cool. As far as like, so that would be probably like your main use for the fish finder is that, and what are you looking for?
Yeah. So when you're looking in deep water, or you're looking for a larger target, the lower frequencies are better.
Cool.
Okay. So 83 kilohertz is what I'm using. Like 85, 90% of the time, I'm only using 83 kilohertz. And you can see schools of bigger bait like mackerel. Sardines will come back kind of like fuzzy, like a cloud. You won't get individual target separation and see like individual sardines on 83. Whereas on 200 kilohertz, you can probably see those you could see better definition between them on sardines and see small bait better with a higher frequency. But
it won't be
so
as
a lot
deep.
of times. So yeah, if you're looking, say you have a lot of clutter on your screen and there's a lot of fuzz and noise and you don't have a really clear sonar screen, sometimes the 200 will help you kind of see through small objects or like plankton or red crabs or noise on the surface, and you can kind of have better separation of small objects with 200 kilohertz. But like I said, 90% of the time, 83 kilohertz is what I'm cruising around with, looking for bigger bait or for bigger fish.
That's awesome.
So if you're buying a fish finder, you want to make sure that it has that frequency, because I know a lot of the fish finders that are coming out today only have 200, and you want to check that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing is,
very good.
If you're looking at Lowrance units, like say you're looking at like an entry level Lowrance unit, which I believe is like the Hook Reveal series now.
Okay.
Those don't offer 83 kilohertz.
Ooh, that's such a good point.
Keep that
awesome.
Keep that in mind. I think they sell an adapter where you can adapt a transducer that has that. And this may be getting too technical for the discussion.
Perfect.
Too. You can roll me back.
This is where we need to be.
Okay. Good.
We're not going to get this kind of information from Lowrance or from.
No, you won't.
I mean, this is the kind of stuff that so we say, oh yeah, you should get a fish finder, and somebody goes and buys a fish finder, and then like down the road, a couple months down the road, when they can't take it back, they say, oh, it doesn't have that frequency. That sucks. That sucks to be in that situation. So this is this is what we want to get people get out. So it's perfect.
For sure. So and it's attractive because of the price point, and they do a wide. So they do what's called like a wide beam 200 kilohertz. It doesn't have great depth penetration, and it can get washed out real easily if you have a lot of stuff in the water. So you really want to find one, even if it's an inexpensive one. Yeah. Find one that has 83 kilohertz, at least as an option. Yeah. Or mid chirp is more or less the same thing.
Okay. Super good.
Mid chirp or 83 kilohertz. 50 kilohertz is even better. But if you're looking for a fish finder and you want to target yellowtail, you got to have, in my opinion, I mean, I'm sure there's guys who could go out there with down scan and probably do fine. But
no, that's fine though. But that's good because
sure,
we're talking about the basics and maybe their fish finder doesn't have down scan, so that's like an extra feature, right? So give me 1 second. I just want to say something to the group, guys. If you and there's a good amount of people in here. There's 53. I think this might be an all-time high. Maybe we hit 60 before. But if you guys want to do me a favor and hit that like button now while we're still kind of mid show, that'll trigger YouTube to share it out with other people that are subscribers that maybe don't know about it yet. So do me a favor, hit that like button. We're at 21 now, and we have 52 people in here. Hit that like button, guys. Let's keep the show rolling. All right. That way I don't have to interrupt the interview with asking for likes. All right, cool. All right, let's get back at it. So that's super cool. I think that you're just dropping gems on us. And first of all, thank you so much for even doing the show and for being so open with your knowledge.
Man.
What would you do? So say you're over a body of water and you're over 100 feet deep. What would make you stop your kayak and fish that zone? What would make you, if you're looking at your sonar, you're seeing something come across, what kind of stuff do you look for to say, okay, this might be a good spot or whatever? Or if you see fish.
So I mean, I think when you have a giant school of yellowtail that swims under the boat, it's pretty obvious what it is. I mean, you'll get to the point where you stop kind of second guessing yourself. And obviously, if you see a school of fish, then you're stopping and you're dropping. But outside of that, a lot of times what you're looking for is you'll see the bait, right? You're looking for areas that have bait because predators are looking to eat, right? So you find the bait, and eventually there'll probably be some predators swim through. Whether or not they're the right kind is a different story, but. So that's what you're looking for initially is just like clouds, right? Yeah. Clouds or like small squiggly worms that might be like greenbacks swimming around real fast.
Got it.
And then if you're over an area where the bait is all in one big uniform cloud, right? Like it's just super homogeneous looking.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Yeah, go ahead.
And it's just sitting there. Then there's a couple things that you can be sure of. Like usually that's bait that's pretty comfortable, right? It's just sitting there. It's not getting chased around. It's not stratifying where you have like separations or tight wads or like walling off. So if you have a bunch of bait that's just sitting there in a big wad that looks super comfortable, that's not a terrible place to fish, but you want to look for bait that's kind of scattered and pushed around in balls. And so what that looks like is like you'll have a big purple or like reddish cloud, and all of a sudden it becomes tight yellow and all erratic. You might not see big worms or fish swimming in it at all, but just the way that the bait is reacting to whatever is around it is what's really triggering. You're like, okay, something's happening here. This bait's getting pushed around, and a lot of times before you know it, it'll show up right on the surface around you. Whether it's getting chased or what have you. When the sonar, when you have a full screen of bait and it goes completely blank, then you know something important just happened and that you probably should have a bait out already.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's so good. Okay, so I'm envisioning what I see because I spearfish, right? So yeah, like it's totally the exact scenario. I mean, bait is bait, right? You're gonna observe it with a fish finder from the kayak, or when you spearfish, you can observe that happening with your eyes, where you're surrounded by bait, everything is calm, they're all kind of just hanging out, and all of a sudden, all the bait disappears. And like you're out there floating by yourself. It's like, what? Where'd all the bait go? And it's creepy. But then you'll see a school of fish swim by, and like it could be like up to 40 seconds of between when the bait disappears and the fish swim by, right? Or you're in the water and you're swimming, kind of like the bait is all kind of like schooled up together. Like it's not as spread out. They're swimming in tighter groups, basically. So. It's interesting that you describe the same thing, but from the perspective of the sounder. That's super cool. Super cool.
Yeah, you see, it's pretty obvious, especially if you're drifting. Maybe you're not trolling. Maybe you're drifting in a zone, and you have these big clouds underneath you that just look the same for minutes, half an hour, and all of a sudden things start getting pushed around or moved, and there's no sea lions around. Then you have a pretty good idea that there's game fish, even if you're not metering them.
Okay, so I see that.
So another thing too. Sorry. So yeah, here's the thing. So when you're seeing those clouds and it's not moving, it's looking lazy or it's like super comfortable, kind of homogeneous. The next thing you want to do is try to break it apart. You want to see if you can get it to react to your jig. So I fish yo-yo pretty much year round, not because I think I might catch something. It's because I want to probe. Like I see a cloud, I want to see if it will react to my jig as it's going into it, right? And if my jig scares the bait away and I can kind of like see it maybe smashing down to the bottom as I drop my jig on top of it, or maybe it's not moving at all, it's not even reacting to my jig whatsoever, that can tell you a lot as well. Like you could be under big clouds and it might just be blacksmith perch or whitefish.
Oh, yes.
And typically they won't even react to your iron. So you drop your iron into it and they'll just stay in that homogeneous cloud and you're like jigging this thing as hard as you can and it won't move. And it just doesn't even care that your iron's there. Then that tells you something.
Exactly.
And then on the other hand, if you get all the bait following your jig down with it, then you think, okay, maybe this is mackerel, maybe it's like some other bait that could be chasing it. So you're just kind of probing it with that jig and kind of just bouncing it around in there and see if you can get it to react.
That makes sense, and that comes from experience right there. Like, yeah, I know exactly that. I'm always going to relate it to like being underwater and seeing the fish do this, but like, I imagine like when you're in the water off of the Coronados. And there's just a bunch of junk fish everywhere, and they're kind of like suspended. So I could see that they're scattered around, and they don't care. They're just kind of like whatever. But then you get the bait fish; those will react to you, and I can see that you're using your jig to test if it's like basically other kind of fish or bait fish, because the bait fish will usually react to your jig. That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, it's just like an inference that you can make. I'm not saying it's like a surefire thing, but
it's more information than you had before.
And one thing that's really cool is if you're working that iron in that cloud and you can get it to react, maybe you can get it to separate, like so you get like a gap in between. The fish will come right into that gap.
Oh,
so you create some spacing and create your own kind of walling off, and then the fish can find their way into it. So sometimes you just, and I mean, this isn't like a secret. This is just blind jigging in bait. You just see bait wads. You're just sitting there and just working the yo-yo as much as you can.
That makes sense because the yo-yo effect is pushing some of the bait up and some of the bait down, and then you make a little channel for the game fish to.
Sometimes, and you're sitting there and they're not reacting, and all of a sudden the bait walls off and it's gone, and you get bit before you even see it on the screen. But that's just something that you can do when if you're not metering the fish, you're not seeing visible sign, and all you really see is the bait. Then work that bait, and if you're dedicated to just kind of exploring, like not live bait fishing it the whole time, right? You could drop a dropper loop into it or just try and jig a sabiki into it the whole time. You can learn a lot just from cruising around all day with a sabiki.
That's
everything.
True.
Everything you mark, just drop the sabiki into it and try to snag whatever's there, and
you'll
learn.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You'll learn pretty quick the difference between sardines and greenbacks and Spanish and all the different baits just from working sabiki all day.
That's so good. So good. What's that? What about, I was going to ask you about, how many space? I had the question. I didn't want to interrupt you, and I totally spaced on the question. Oh, it's okay. I lost it. Okay. So let's just keep it going. So on, yeah, that's weird. I totally lost the question I was going to ask. Okay, let's just keep it going. So so we talked about Fish Finder. We talked about, so Dave Dalton had a question about the hook too. He said it's only got 200 or higher.
Or 200 or high chirp.
Or high chirp. So those are the ones that you wouldn't want to get, right? Because we want.
In my opinion, no.
Yeah.
I think Lowrance is really targeting kind of entry-level beginning freshwater fishermen with that hook reveal series.
Yeah, freshwater. Yeah.
And 200 kilohertz works great in freshwater,
Yeah, it'll give you a clear image, but it's not going to give you that deep image. Cool.
In my opinion, it's not going to. And if you're really stuck on the price, and you need to kind of keep it below $200 or $300, I mean, there's other options out there other than Lowrance, that will have a low frequency that you need. But I would just, that would be my recommendation, and you can go up from there. I mean, the mid-level and high-level Lowrance is amazing, but like I love my Elite 7 Ti too.
Yeah.
But it just seems like if you can find an older Lowrance, like the old what was it, the Elite 4 HDI series, or like the original hooks.
Yeah.
The Hook HDI that has 83 kilohertz, and that'll work.
Oh, sweet.
Even though it's a small screen, you could probably pick one up for under $200 maybe.
That's really good. I remember my question now that while you started talking. I remember my question.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're looking at your same situation, same scenario. You're like in 100+ feet of water, and you're seeing the screen, and you see a tight ball and a lot of worms underneath it.
Yeah.
What would you do in that scenario?
Just get super excited.
Yeah, right.
I just get super excited. But like, here's the thing though, like the fish can swim fast, especially
Yeah,
yellowtail.
yeah.
So if you're
That's true.
if you're bait, say you're fishing, like I love dropping dropper loops like that. When you see the worm on the sonar and you drop a 10-ounce reverse dropper loop on that thing, it's like to the bottom instantly. You're just dropping it on their heads.
Yeah.
And if you have a lively greenback, I mean, they're gonna bite that thing whether they want to or not. The irons get down a little slower. You know, there's a whole bunch of other like knife jigs and stuff that can get down real fast. But if you don't have the pole kind of already ready to
Rigged,
drop,
yeah.
not in your hand, but at least on deck, ready to drop, you know, you're going to be reaching back, you're grabbing it, you're trying to unhook the hook, you're like fumbling with it a little bit, you drop it, and then usually it's fluttering down, and then it's too late. So it's like, with a dropper loop, I'll cruise with my bait in the water, like right next to me. And that's on a Hobie or in a paddle kayak. On a paddle kayak, I'll just put it in a rod holder, and just I'll put it so the weight is barely submerged beneath the water. And then the mackerel's kind of swimming behind. And like if I see the mark, literally all I do is just reach back and flick open the
the bail,
bail.
Right,
yeah, the gear.
Drag,
put it out of gear and just drop it right straight down.
That's
and
so
it's
good.
dropping before I even take the rod out of the holder.
Oh yeah, that's gonna save you. That's gonna save you so much time. That's
yeah.
So
Obviously, in a Hobie, you're sitting there with the out of gear and your thumb on the spool, so it's just like, and then you're dropping.
So good. No, that makes sense. That's a good point.
So like have your bait out ready to go, and you know whether it's the yo-yo or dropper loop, and then you see those worms down there, you're gonna be.
So with the dropper loop, you're doing that with live bait, and you're basically fly line. You're basically kind of towing the bait along.
It's like right beside the boat.
Yeah.
It's like my weight is right in the water beside me, just so it stays alive and lively, like right in the water next to me.
That's cool. That's
cool. It's just like, and it drops fast.
No, but that could be the difference. You know, I'm sure that's the difference between like reaching back, unhooking the hook, and dropping it down. You're like a good 10 seconds in.
And that's like they're already on their way across. You know, usually.
Somebody asked, how long do you work bait like with the jig like we were talking about earlier? Like there's no fish, but you see bait.
Oh, right. So I guess it would depend on what else you saw around that day. Like if you're sitting there on a bunch of bait that's not doing anything, and you're in like 100 feet of water, and then you see out to the north, there's a bunch of birds and like commotion, then you go.
Yeah.
But if it's dead, or like there's not much current, or it's kind of slow, and all you can find is the big bait cloud, then I'll stay there the whole time. Try different jigs, try different baits or whatever. But if you guys see me out there, you'll see I just move around a lot. You know, like if I'm on the bait cloud and it seems like it's there, I'll try to find the edges of it. Like where does it stop? Where does it end? How deep is it? How shallow does it go? How deep does it go? You know, and try to define kind of the area that it's in, doing spirals or like zigzags.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. I like it.
Yeah. So I wouldn't necessarily sit in it the whole time unless I started seeing that walling up or stratification.
And see, the other thing is like you can't just mindlessly fish. You see something on your sonar, you're gonna just drop down and see what you can get. No, you gotta. It's out like your whole approach is very methodical. Like you're always thinking about, well, okay, so I'm gonna probe the bait. I'm gonna see what I can find. I'm gonna see how wide this bait goes, how deep it is. Kind of like try to get the feel for it. No, that makes sense. That's good. I think a lot of people might not have that thought to just like to actually try to figure out where the whole bait ball is, I guess. And then that's cool. Okay, so that's a lot of technical stuff. Let's go take a step back now and jump into the story of that event that you talked about earlier, where you got the mug. So, do you want to take us through the day?
I got 2 mugs.
Oh, you won twice?
Well, no, it was just there's the biggest fish overall, and then the biggest yellowtail. And nice. It just so happened that the biggest fish was a yellowtail that year.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So, how did that day pan out, like from the beginning?
It's a really cool event, you know, like there's a lot of good people that show up. There was tons of donations for the raffle. I mean, you go to the raffle at one of those events and it's like, you're almost sure to win at least one prize, you know, and it's a really cool event. It was a good cause, and it's always cool to see everybody come out and you know, just be part of the community. But I mean, it was a pretty typical day. We were on a bite that I couldn't find any greenbacks, you know, greenbacks, your preferred bait. I couldn't find any of that. I only had some like small Spanish, some just lousy little Spanish. They're so lazy, and and annoying, and they'll stick you like when you try to grab them.
Oh, that's funny.
But yeah, I was the area that we were fishing was kind of near a reef like structure, and I think it was in pretty shallow. I want to say it was in like 70 feet of water. But I won't say where the reef was.
Yeah,
but
no
there's tons of structure around all of La Jolla.
You said it
And
enough.
so a lot of people had been keyed in on fish that were on the surface because the yellowtail were swimming through kind of mid column, and we saw some breaking on the surface. But I just stuck with the dropper loop all day. In June, it's kind of you troll. It's like I'm dredging the bottom. You get all kinds of weird bycatch and stuff. But
when you're doing that, I'm gonna interrupt you for a second
sure.
When you're doing that, are you pretty much keeping your line like straight up and down?
All right, so if your line is straight up and okay, this is my opinion. If your line is straight up and down, then you either need to start paddling or go with or switch things up a little bit. Because when your line is straight up and down, your bait can swim around your dropper loop and it can get twisted real easy.
Mm-hmm.
But as it's dragging, then the fish kind of has to stay behind it.
Got it.
So you always want to have good current, and I think probably a lot of your listeners already know that current is a good thing, especially current that's going in the right direction. So if you're drifting in a current, then I probably have it out at like almost a 45-degree angle, just drifting.
Mm-hmm.
And that's keeping a steady bounce where it's like drag, bounce. And you don't want to be, so it's a decent angle where I'm keeping tension on it most of the time. You don't want to have so much line out that when the dropper loop hits the bottom, you have a bunch of slack.
Oh, yeah,
so
yep.
Depends on the speed that you're drifting. But if there's no current and your bait is straight up and down, you probably want to slow troll it or bounce it and kind of like move it around a little bit.
That makes sense.
Cool. If you're like trying to keep it in the water and soak that bait.
Right.
But a lot of times dropper loop, I'm just cruising around with it and dropping it as soon as I see what I'm looking for.
Super cool. All right, let's keep going with the story. Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. Yeah, there's not a whole lot to the story. It's just the same story that I always have. I was fishing a reverse dropper loop. I had kind of lousy Spanish mackerel bait, but it just seems that you can kind of connect with bigger fish sometimes when you're on the bottom. I don't know. And then your chances of bycatch are always there. If you're fly lining a mackerel, you might get some bycatch, but when you're like dragging the bottom I don't ever actually target halibut.
Okay.
The only time I ever catch halibut is when I'm targeting yellowtail and I get halibut as bycatch.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
So it's kind of nice bycatch to have.
Yeah.
and then sea bass too. So, but there's a lot of other like sharks and rays and other annoying stuff down there. So I just kind of, for the tournament, I had decided to stick to the bottom and just dredge the bottom because, a big halibut come or something come up off the bottom, and then ended up getting lucky kind of later in the morning, I think.
I like
later
it.
in the morning, and I got my fish inside my hatch and kind of hid it away, and like no one really knew. And when I got to the beach and pulled that thing out, it was like boom. I think it was 30 or 31.
That's all. Yeah, that's awesome.
It was a nice one. But it's really fun when there's good fish. A lot of other people caught yellowtail that day, so it was a fun way in.
Was it close?
And then we had I think Kevin had second place, and I think his was like only a couple pounds short. And I think he had multiple fish that day too, but I only had that one.
That's cool.
So yeah, it's all good. It's just for it's for a good cause, and it's just a fun day for everybody. But,
super cool. All right.
Yeah.
So let's see. I want to start opening it up for questions because we're already almost at 8:00.
Okay.
And before we do that, I want to maybe ask you if you have anything you want to share with us as far as like websites, if you have any sponsors or anything like that, or just whatever you want to share as far as social media goes, like your Instagram.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't have any sponsors.
Hello.
I am my own sponsor, and my wife kind of sponsors me too, so that's kind of cool. And my friends have sponsored me throughout the years, so that's been nice. But yeah, I'm just I just work full time. I'm just like a recreational, I'm a hobbyist.
I love it.
I'm just lucky I can get out there and, just do my thing. I have a kind of a specific narrow window of fishing that I really like to do, and I think I'm kind of good at. And so I really focus on that. And I'm, it's always a learning process. I'm learning new stuff all the time. Even, from your show, I'm learning new stuff. So
super good.
I guess my YouTube is I've been YouTubing for probably 6 years, but I was kind of always making videos that were just like catching the fish.
Yeah.
So it was kind of just like I was making a video for myself, so that
like
I
a
can remember my
documentary.
catch.
Yeah. You catch a
Yeah,
fish
so
twice.
it's almost like, it's not like it's bragging. It's just like the videos were more for me. And then I started like watching some other channels that were so informative and like so helpful. And these guys who are just like masters giving out so much information. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever checked out Tactical Bassing.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Tactical
It's an
Bass.
awesome channel. Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
probably the best fishing channel on all of YouTube. It's
Super
amazing.
good.
Largemouth bass fishing.
So much.
So definitely
much
shout out
content,
to
too.
them. I mean, watching those guys like that and other people who are like trying to help people and trying to help learn just kind of made me realize that I kind of wanted to start making content that was more, you know, helpful to people and that they would be interested in watching to help themselves as opposed to just kind of showing the fish that I was catching.
Yeah, that's cool.
So lately I've been trying to kind of put some content out there that will help people, at least, even if it's just little things. It's not like I'm giving out big secrets or anything. These are just the very basics kind of that I'm trying to put out there for people.
If you're new and getting into it, it's the kind of stuff that matters. It's the kind of stuff that helps, you know?
So yeah, I'm just trying to get to, you know, I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So if you guys are watching and you haven't subscribed, just check it out. That's my only plug, I guess.
Perfect. No, it's good. And so guys, again, it's just his name, Chris Blevins, and he's on YouTube, and you can also look him up on Instagram. What's your Instagram tag? It's like
it's confusing. So my Instagram tag is Beatrice.
Oh, is it?
Like the name Beatrice.
Yeah.
1138.
Is that your wife's?
It's a nickname I had from way back in the day.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's awesome.
I think it was from Beavis and Butthead. I think is how I picked up that name. My friends are really awesome people.
Takes me back to Beavis and Butthead. That's funny. That's funny. Cool though. Okay, that's good.
So that's my Instagram. You guys check it out. You know, I mostly post fishing stuff on Instagram. You know, and my kid once in a while. So check it out.
There we go. We have Adam's Fishing Channel says almost to 1K. Also, I'll definitely be subscribing. All right, cool, guys. Yeah, make sure you guys go subscribe to Chris's channel and support him. He's out here doing stuff to help you guys fish and catch fish. So let's go to some of these questions. If you guys have questions, now's a good time to start posting them. Try to do all capital letters, do question, and then put your question. That way it's easier for me to find them. Here we go. We're going to get started. I'm going to go through the chat a little bit and find some of the questions that I missed earlier. I have one here that I highlighted. How long will you keep working? Oh, I got that one already. Let's see. Here we go. Ray asks, so what ounce sinker should be prepared to use for yellowtail? 10 ounce? Or like when you're doing the dropper loop setup that you...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll carry from 8 to 16.
Perfect.
For my dropper loops, for my reverse dropper loops. If there's like no current whatsoever, or you have smaller baits, sardines or Spanish, I'll fish an 8 ounce, 10 ounce. The other end of the spectrum would be like if you're in just ripping current, you know, you've probably been, especially in the bay, you get into current where you can't even get your bait to touch the bottom, you know? And so I'll be fishing a 12 ounce or a 16 ounce in that case.
Oh, wow.
For the dropper loop. I'll go all the way up to 16 ounce torpedo for a reverse dropper, especially if I'm like bouncing it, like kind of slow troll and bouncing it. I'll do a 16 ounce. Perfect. Yeah.
No, that's good. That's interesting because I wouldn't think to fish that heavy, but it makes sense. I mean, it's all about getting that weight to the bottom.
It gets down faster.
Yeah.
It gets down faster, and it kind of just keeps more tension in the line. But I would say, you know, don't overthink it. Just if you have an 8 or a 10 ounce, it's fine.
Cool. Let's see. I see Ben is in here. What up, Ben? Welcome. Great info on both your channels. Thanks. Awesome. Thank you for jumping on, Ben. Fabian says, okay. All right. Let's see. Clint. Have you or anyone you know tried to gaff a yellow or anything big and fell out of a kayak?
Oh boy. How much of my shameful past should I reveal?
It's
not while gaffing.
It's a learning experience.
I have a cool video of where I had a black sea bass at color, and it broke my rod holder, and like I almost lost my pole underwater and like grabbed it at the last second. That was pretty crazy. I almost flipped in that one. And so I wasn't gaffing a black sea bass, obviously. I was just trying to get it to leader and get it unhooked, and I almost flipped there.
Wow.
Let's see. I got almost flipped by a thresher shark once. Like same deal, trying to unhook it, and it kind of whacked me in the head with its tail. Thresher sharks, man. They're freaking brutal.
Mean.
I did fall out of the boat one time when I was like trying to do it was a day where I caught 2 yellowtail, like a double hookup, you know?
And you were doing
and
a
I was trying to
dance?
do
That's good.
I was doing a celebration dance.
Oh,
I was
you
trying
were?
to stand up with both of them, and I straight fell out of the boat. and I had to like flop on the. I
Oh
had to
my
flop
gosh.
both my fish and kind of jump back in the boat. I was just getting kind of greedy and trying to take the double yellowtail standing pose, my X Factor, and I just like straight up fell in the water. It was pretty funny.
But you didn't lose any fish, right?
I didn't lose the fish and I
Yes.
lost
All
no
right.
poles, but yeah,
Oh,
it's close. But
that's
okay, so
hilarious.
to give you a helpful hint there, though, here's a tip for you on the gaffing the big fish.
Mm.
When you have the fish close to the boat and you're ready to gaff it, back off that drag a little bit.
Okay, so similar
Back off.
concept, with the halibut landing, where you know it's gonna make that final
Gonna
run.
make a final run,
Mm-hmm.
and if something weird happens, just back it off. Because especially, it's a different story if you're over thick kelp. You know, you really don't want it to get one more run because it could jump into a
Yeah.
stringer, and you're kind of horsing it up.
Yeah.
But most of the time, like you see it at color and you know the fish is going to be doing like a death circle on the surface, back off that drag a little bit. And then after you gaff it, you want to take it completely out of gear, put the bait clicker on,
Oh, that gives you a little bit of tension, but it's
and
not
then stick it
drag.
in hot water. So keep a little tension on there, but then if the fish runs or something crazy happens,
Yeah,
it can take line, right? So you gaff it, before you bring the fish in the boat or do anything else, take the reel out of gear. Because like, especially like we said with the halibut, they shake the gaff and they do a run and you have your drag pinned down while it's in the rod holder and then you got problems.
Yeah.
So if you want to be safer with the gaff on big fish, just make sure you back off that drag, put the clicker on, and then set it down before you try to bring it in your lap.
Yeah, that makes sense. Right on. That's good. All right. Another question from MX Junkie. He says, Chris, what are your ideal conditions that you're looking for?
Probably that would be hundreds of yellowtails swimming all over and biting every bait that I put in front of them. That would be ideal. I got into conditions like that before, and it was pretty ideal. But yeah, so you're looking for current, and you're looking for presence of bait and the right kind of bait. Like if you're out there and you see, so you're looking for the current. People refer to it as downhill, but it's mostly you just want current that's kind of going into the kelp. If you have current that's coming out of the kelp, it's going to be bringing a bunch of grass and floating stuff, and it'll be kind of dirty water.
And you probably should be fishing the other side of that kelp bed.
Yeah, if you can make it there, or checking deeper or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for current that's like going pretty hard into the kelp or into the structure, even if it's not kelp, into the reef or the structure that I'm looking for.
That's
pretty much ideal.
So notice how he didn't mention Chris didn't mention bright sunny day or overcast day. He really keyed in on what the bait is doing, right, and what the current is doing, because that's more important than what the right. Makes sense.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you think a lot of times when there's big swells in the water, that's driving the current.
Yeah.
So you get big swells, and that's kind of what you want, because then you got a lot of water moving around out there, and the fishing can be better when. I'm not saying it's like crazy wind swell, but you get some ground swell coming through there, and that really helps. And you can also trigger the upwelling that way, right? Where you get the water to turn over, and that can help things or hurt things, but it just makes for a more dynamic situation. You want like a dynamic conditions where things are moving, things are changing, the bait's moving, not like this stagnant water, where it's kind of the bait looks very comfortable there, or there's a bunch of stuff floating in the water.
Perfect.
So you're just looking for water that's moving and kind of dynamic conditions. And I would say just if you're not seeing what you like, just keep searching around. Go in shallow, go way deep, and just the more you look, you'll just find things in weird areas where you're like, no one fishes here, but there's,
no, that makes sense. That's good. That's good.
They're all over. You just gotta look.
That's a great answer right there. We're good there.
Yeah.
Okay, it's Salty SoCal 22 says, how far off the breakers do you troll for yellowtail typically? I think that's kind of part of the same answer, right?
Okay. Well, I'd say there's another level to that question, and when he's saying the breakers, he's talking about the waves on the shore. So if that's at the boat launch, then you need to be well outside of that to be outside the reserve.
Yeah.
So if you're launching from La Jolla Shores, you got to paddle out like at least outside the reserve. So that's well outside the breakers, maybe like a mile out.
Yeah. So
a little less than a mile.
Salty SoCal, what I would recommend for you is that you download an app called Fish Legal. It's an app both for Android and iPhone. I forget who recommended it. Please put in the chat who was the one that I think might have been HTX Oscar, but it's called Fish Legal. and it'll show you the reserves. And if you let the app use your location, it'll show you on the map, and it'll show you that you're outside of the reserve or not. And you can use that while you're fishing. Just make sure you don't fish the reserves. That's a big ticket, and you make everybody else look like a jerk if you're fishing in the reserve, because the authorities just see a fisherman. They don't see that you didn't look up the regs. They're gonna blame that on all fishermen. So.
Now, that being said, as long as you're in a legal area, I would say you could catch yellowtail all the way up just outside the breaking waves. Yeah. So if you were in, like, say you're in some other spot, maybe you're in Baja or something, or down at some random beach in North County or up north, you could catch yellowtail in 10 feet of water.
Yeah, yeah.
They'll come right in there.
I would agree with that. And also like on the islands, just right off the
rocks.
Oh,
yeah, you casting up into boiler rocks, and you never know what's going to happen. Yep. But I would say, that if you're in an area where it's legal to fish close to the surf, definitely check it out, especially if you see bait kind of piled up in there. Drag a bait through there.
It's awesome. Daniel Osterberg asks, what's your general game plan for the summer without giving away your secrets?
My game plan for the summer.
A general game plan, but you don't feel like you got to give away the house.
I'm kind of wanting to fish halibut lately. I've been getting the itch to fish more halibut, honestly.
That's good.
So for me, that would mean, maybe fishing a trap hook once in a while. I'm still fishing my heavy line, like 40 pound mono top shots or fluoro leaders. Sometimes I'll do a 3-way swivel. It kind of just depends on how much preparation time I have ahead of time. The reverse dropper loop's so fast to tie that I can just do it kind of on the water. But I would say I'm kind of looking to maybe target halibut a little bit coming up soon. And game plan for the summer is just try to get on the water as much as I can and get out there and hopefully make it so my wife can get out there too and get her on some fish. And like I said, I kind of fish dropper loop and heavy iron all summer long. I'm not as skilled in the sight fishing like some of the other guys around. So I'm still working on that game. I'm still kind of like 10 years back with a big long jig stick and a surface iron, not onto the newer tactics that are out there. Yeah.
But it gives you something to look forward to. It gives you something to learn.
I'm more of a bottom dredger and less of a sight fisher, but I'll be switching it up this summer. It just depends on what the bite's doing. Yeah. Depends on what the bite's doing. I'd like to go check out some different spots. It's good to branch out from La Jolla. You got a little bit of a surf launch sometimes, but you can do really well in other parts of the county.
Perfect. All right, let's see. Mr. Kevin Nakata's got a question for you. He says, are your arms sore at the end of the day?
If I catch a bunch of yellowtail, definitely.
Nice.
It's a backbreaker, man. It'll make your arms really sore. Or a big white or a big black. It'll wear you out too. But I don't know. Maybe he's talking about paddling.
Oh, maybe.
If he's talking about paddling versus pedaling, then usually not. No. It's surprisingly, like, you can really cover some ground in a paddle kayak. Like, obviously most people have so much more endurance with the lower body and their legs, and they can just cruise around all day. But I really enjoy mixing it up and getting the upper body workout, core workout, and just kind of, it's faster, honestly.
Awesome.
It's faster in the paddle kayak.
Oh, you think it's faster in the paddle kayak?
I think so. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, especially if you're talking about like a pro angler versus the Kraken.
Oh,
maybe we should do a race.
We should.
Should we do a race?
Yeah, we should. That'd be cool. So I have my Kraken. I have my Kraken too. It seems like it would. I mean, there's less. I don't even have a rudder on my Kraken. So
is yours a 13 or a 15?
13.5. Yeah,
okay.
13. Yeah, 13.
They're not quite as fast, especially without a rudder. My wife had a 13, and the 15's much faster.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, in my opinion, I don't know.
I like the big.
The 13
bow.
kind of has some hips. It's got kind of like a little more hips on her. She's more stable, I think, and wider.
I like the.
But the 15's a little more bladed and faster.
Got it. I like the big bow up front. It's just like definitely getting out of La Jolla. It does it's more buoyant. It seems like in the front it just kind of cuts through the wave a little bit better.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, okay, cool.
But my arms do get a little tired sometimes, but I like to keep paddling because it keeps me in good shape for other stuff too. Like, especially if you surf or whatever, you paddle kayak for 12 hours and you hop on a surfboard. It's like feels like nothing.
That's super cool. Okay. Fabian Lily's got a question. He says, Chris, when making bait in La Jolla is tough, I'll troll a X wrap around going from spot to spot. Is there a certain trolling lure you like or have been successful with?
Yeah. So I don't mess around with Rapalas very much, mostly because you. I think so. To answer the question, no, not really. There's no lures that I really troll around. I'll troll around X-Rap sometimes, but you'll get a lot of bycatch and like really it's better for like bonito or you get thresher sharks on the Rapalas a lot, and you have to really maintain your speed to have them have good action, you know. So as far as trolling, if I don't have live bait, I'm usually not really trolling. I'll be more focusing on just having something ready to drop on marks.
So looking around for marks and then doing that jig like you said before.
And dropping like a flat fall or a heavy iron or something like that. So if I don't have any live bait, I'm usually not trolling at all. I'll be just dropping on marks or casting at sign on the surface.
Sign, yeah. Oh, that makes sense. Cool. Perfect.
But people do well. People get yellowtail on Rapala all the time, but like, especially if you have a little bit of grass floating in the water or like some kelp strands here and there, and you're constantly checking it, and it's like, it could work. But if you don't have a fish finder and you have no bait, then troll a Rapala for sure.
Cool.
But if you have a fish finder, look for those marks and try to drop your lures into an area where you know there's some bait.
Right on. All right, John Lay's got a question. He says, on your reverse dropper, do you tie your sinker or use a rubber band?
I tie it on.
Perfect.
I'll actually put it in the loop. So I'll tie a spider hitch for the reverse dropper, and I'll actually put the weight in the loop. Like you could also tie a Palomar or like just kind of loop the weight on there without tying it on, but I usually always just tie it on. But I don't use the rubber band now.
Cool. Awesome. All right, good stuff. Slinging Lead Cody says, best yellowtail recipe?
Raw.
There you go. Nice.
Raw. Sashimi, baby. It's the best. Oh, I love it.
That's so good.
As long as, you know, and you got to, it goes into a whole nother conversation, but the bleeding, when you catch the fish, you want to bleed it out while it's still alive. Making sure that you get it on ice. You'll take out the guts and the gills. So you gut it and gill it, pack it on ice. And then maybe even put some salt on the ice to brine it. And I'll let it sit in the brine ice for like, 12 to 24 hours before I slice it up for sashimi. And then you'll get that real firm, nice steaks after they're brined.
That's cool.
And I'll eat like most of it raw. But other than raw, I really like ceviche.
Cool.
Ceviche is one of my favorites. So for yellowtail, yeah.
That's cool. Right on. All right, cool. So that was the best yellowtail recipes. That's good. Salty SoCal 22 says, is down imaging important for a fish finder or not necessary?
For freshwater, it's great. It's very important. Down imaging is really important. If you're a bass fisherman in La Jolla, like I'm not really a calico guy. There's guys who are masters out there, and I won't pretend to be, but I will say when you're using the down scan and you're over the kelp, you get really cool images. You can see the individual kelp strands, and you can see little bait clouds like hiding under the. If you're on like 455 or 800 kilohertz down scan frequencies, in submerged kelp is amazing, especially if you're a calico bass fisherman or something like that.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Okay, Rodrigo Costa. What's up, Rodrigo? Welcome to the stream. I don't think I've seen you in here before. If it's your first time here, type in all caps, first timer, and we're going to welcome you to the show. Rodrigo asks, what kayak do you recommend for fishing in La Jolla and SD Bay?
What kayak do I recommend? All right. Well, the one you can afford. I recommend the one you can afford. I have a paddle kayak. I've had all ranges of kayaks. Hobies are great, but a lot of people can't afford them. They're expensive. You got a lot of moving parts. The drive itself. I'm pretty sure the Hobie bait tank costs more than a lot of kayaks that you might buy. So
that's
if you're more specific in the question, like, not without giving your budget range, but I would say under $1,000, there's a lot of good options that you can have out there. None of them have pedals, I don't think. But to get out there and catch a fish, I really like, so I would recommend, so a kayak that's good for, say, bass fishing in a lake or like bay fishing may not necessarily be the best for La Jolla, right? Because for bass fishing, you're looking for something super stable that maybe you can even stand up in, or you're casting, you're twisting all around, you're not dealing with a lot of waves or wind or crazy conditions. In the ocean, I feel that a kayak should be better suited to, at that entry level, should be better suited towards a paddling boat that is made for the ocean. So that has a lot to do with the hull shape and kind of the way that it glides through the water and how it tracks in the water. So like, for under $1,000, an X Factor is a good option. You could get out there, you could put a limit of sea bass in an X Factor and be totally fine.
Yeah.
You have 150 pounds of fish in there and you'd be paddling around like nothing. Prowler 15 from Ocean Kayak is a really cool one. That's one that I had back in the day. It's a super fast boat. It handles amazing in the surf. It's the best surfing boat ever that I've ever paddled. And you could probably pick one up for $200 or $300, getting up higher, the Kraken's great. I love that thing. It has huge storage capacity. It has great sonar. It has big, it's very stable and fast. But if you have the money, obviously that pro angler is pretty much the highest end you can get. But I think a lot of people who are starting out aren't really able to jump in that level. So I would recommend look at something that's like made for the ocean, not like made for bass fishing. It's not gonna serve you as well out there. You'd be taking waves over the bow, and just kind of the way it cuts through the water can be problematic. So
perfect.
It's not necessarily the best answer I know.
No, that's a great answer. That's a great answer.
If it's a boat that you can stand up in the bay and fish, it may not, just because it's stable for bass fishing, may not be the best paddling around out there in the open water.
Makes sense. That's funny. Kevin, like Sea Samurai, is like, yeah, do a race. That'll be fun. We'll do a race. We'll put the drone up and do a race. That'll be fun. Okay. Let's see. Alex, what's up, Alex? Alex Norton says, recommendations for someone without a fish finder.
Recommendations for someone without one who just wants to fish La Jolla without a fish finder?
Yeah, let's do that.
So if you can make live bait, if you can have a way to carry your bait, that's going to help you a lot. Because, it's really easy to get lucky just blind trolling a fly liner around La Jolla. At least in past years it has been. Yeah. Seems like it's a little tougher to get bit on fly line this year. But I would say just find some rudimentary tank that you could put a couple baits in and maybe 3 poles. You want to have a sabiki pole probably. Mm-hmm. And you want to have a live bait pole, whether that's a fly liner, dropper loop, Carolina rig, and maybe one with an iron or like a heavy iron or a surface iron or whatever you might want to throw, swim bait or hook up baits or something. 3 poles, basic kayak. Sorry, what was the question again?
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. That was it. That's right.
Okay.
Recommendations for someone without a fish finder.
Yeah. So, then the tactics you want to do is you're just looking for bait. So the birds are going to show you where the bait is. The sea lions will show you where it is. The dolphins will show you where it is. So just look for life, go towards it, and just keep dropping that sabiki or that jig until something bites it. And if you start pulling up mackerel, even if you don't have a bait tank, bring up your sabiki, take the mackerel straight off the sabiki and put it right on your fly line and just send it out. And you can just do 1 for 1.
Yeah.
If you can. But if you're out there and it's real dead and there's no bait around, probably your best bet is just yo-yoing and just bouncing on the bottom, reel it all the way up to the top, drop it back to the bottom, reel it all the way up, and just kind of work it that way.
Yeah.
If you can't find any visual sign on the surface. It's probably better to stay closer to the kelp without a fish finder. Mm-hmm. I would say, when you're out in 120, 130 foot, that's really keyed in on the sonar marks.
Got it.
If there's not fish up on the surface.
Yeah, that's really good advice. That makes sense. Cool. So there you go. That's funny. I was laughing earlier because Daniel was like, yeah, race for kayak pinks. For kayak pink slips.
Is Catching the Craze in the chat right now?
Yeah, he is.
Is Ryan in the chat?
I see him Catching the Craze. Yep.
Yeah, so him and I have raced before.
Oh, that's funny. What's he on?
He's on a PA, I think. I think it's a 14.
Who won?
It's not a matter of win or lose, but I might have been a little bit faster.
Oh, cool. All right, so let's move on. MX Junkie says, okay, wait, let me make sure I didn't miss anything. Brian says, MMFC secret halibut spot. Oh, that's cool. Okay, cool. MX Junkie says, do you guide?
No, I do not.
Cool. All right, Michael Hart is a first timer. So is Lindsay. What up, guys? Welcome to the stream. Hope you guys are enjoying the show so far. Really quick, I'm gonna give you guys a quick commercial. Monday we do fish reports. We call in and talk about our fishing adventures of that previous weekend or the previous week. Tuesday, Wednesday so far has been basically just kind of like catching up, answering your questions, and having fun talking about fishing. So it's just basically me talking with you guys and reading the comments and interacting. And then Thursdays we're doing interviews now, like today. And then Fridays we do trivia night. So the questions from trivia night are usually derived from previous episodes and including our guests. So be ready for tomorrow's trivia, and I hope you guys are taking notes. Cool. All right, let's keep it going. Let's see next. Are you still good with time? What's about 8:20? You're good. You're still okay?
I'm good. Yeah.
All right,
Keep
cool.
rolling.
Awesome. Cool.
I lost you on there.
No, that's good. We're good. We're
Lost
good.
the audio
We're good.
there.
Okay. Let's see. Honestly, why I'm here? Cool. Right on. Awesome. Okay. Raw fish is a risk of parasites need to be frozen 48 hours, says Todd. Just saying. Okay.
Yeah, that's what the FDA would say.
Cool. Nice. Cool. No, that's a good thing. If you guys, you guys can do your own research on that piece. That's good.
Yeah. User disclaimer: I am not a doctor or a healthcare professional, so you could get parasites. I've eaten a lot of it. I mean, okay. So here's the thing: if you're gonna cut sashimi, get a good knife and cut the slices thin, and you can see when the parasites are there. I mean, I've pulled them out before. You may not see them, but in my opinion, after you freeze it, it's not the same. And you can't go to a sushi restaurant and get yellowtail that hasn't been frozen. So
right.
It's kind of, I guess it's a risk that I'm willing to take.
Got it. Cool. Okay, let's keep it going. That's funny. Kevin's giving him a hard time because he got beat. Salty SoCal 22 says, "Will you guide though?"
So there's liability and insurance and all that stuff, and I would gladly refer to any of the other guides around La Jolla, but I'm not sure how many of them are working right now.
Right.
Have
you looked into it? You know how difficult it is to get a guiding license? Or is it difficult?
I don't know how difficult it is, but based on my career that I have, I work in biotech.
Oh, cool.
So it'd be pretty tough to make a living with the guiding.
Yeah.
This on par with a biotech type deal. I mean,
and then it will cut into your actual fishing time. It makes it a job instead of you having fun. Yeah.
There's a lot to be said about that. I'm all down for I really don't want to take people out. Yeah. If I'm at the launch at 4 a.m. and you see me, come say hi, and I'll tell you whatever you want to know. But it's when people are texting you and being like, "Hey man, take me out. How's it going out there?" It's kind of all right, show up at the launch, come introduce yourself to me in person, and then you might get some information.
That's a good point too. That's a good point. There's a lot of people that will message you and stuff. Yeah, that makes sense. Cool.
And maybe one day in the future, I'm not saying it's completely out of the question, but it puts a lot of pressure on you, man. You got to produce, and I don't catch as many fish as Kevin, so I don't know if I would be that good at it, but it sounds fun.
That's so funny. All right, guys, we're nearing the end of the questions, so if you have any questions, make sure you pop them in there. We have 2 more that I see here queued up, and we're not gonna linger on. If there's no more questions, we're gonna wrap up the show when the questions are done. Okay, so we're moving on to Oscar's question. Okay, here we go. What are your thoughts on 77 kilohertz?
77 kilohertz is great. Yeah, it works great. I think that's on Garmin.
Okay.
They use 77. Works great. Yeah, the lower it is, the better depth penetration. So it actually has a little bit better depth penetration than 83 kilohertz.
Perfect.
Now your signal processing has a lot to do with that as well. So a higher end fish finder can do more with the return signal that it gets.
Yeah.
And the screen size, to give you the target separation. But 77 is great. If you have a fish finder like a Striker or like a Garmin Striker that has 77, that's what you want to be rolling around with.
Perfect.
The deeper water.
Perfect. That's funny. Ryan and Kevin talking about something. That's hilarious. Okay. Next question is this is the last question unless I see you guys pop your questions into the chat. So if you have any questions, now's the time to add your questions before we wrap up the show.
I have a couple of really common questions that people ask me that I can interject at the end after we go through the user questions. Yeah.
Sounds great. That works. Okay, Graham's got a question. He says, nose hook the bait up through the nose or sideways? I think it depends on the bait, right?
My technique has changed over the years. It depends on the bait, like sardine versus greenback mackerel. Pacific chub mackerel is the mackerel that I want to fish with as much as I can. And I will go up through the nose, but you're not actually in the nose. I go up kind of through the gap between the upper jaw bone and the skull bone. There's like a kind of a membrane in between the bone there. So if you could pop it
like in the nose or over here?
Further up than that. I can't point at your screen, but it's like so the top jaw of that mackerel, you kind of have an illustrated jawbone right there.
Yeah.
Just extend that line out to the very tip of the nose. It's very close to the tip of the nose where I'll hook it. There, yeah. like there's an intersection between the jawbone and the skull where there's just a membrane there, and if you can pop it through there, it does almost no damage to them.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. It's kind of like the equivalent to the nose bone. Like
Like
you go
where the
under
cartilage
yeah,
meets the
under
bone.
the cartilage,
Yes,
right? Yeah.
kind of like that. And I usually will do that for greenbacks. It kind of depends on your hook too, though. I used to go sideways, like through the nose, like, and you want to cause as little damage to the fish's, anatomy as you can. You want to try to be kind of gentle with them, but like I found that side hooking them, especially with a circle hook, they would twist a lot, and sometimes the hook would like twist and close their mouth shut, so when it holds their mouth shut, and then they can't breathe. So I
Oh,
found
got
that
it. Yep.
going
Yep.
up through that jawbone, they never have the issue of the hook twisting and closing their mouth.
That's cool. That's a good.
But
That's
I
a good
think
way
a
to
lot
do
of
it.
people have different techniques there. But I figure whatever does the least damage to the fish's anatomy is going to help it live the longest and stay
Yeah.
the friskiest.
And
So I'll go
doesn't
through.
restrict its breathing. Yeah.
Yep.
Right on. Okay, so I see some more questions come through. Kevin, by the
Yeah.
way, says you would be a great guide. There you go.
Uh,
Cool. Let's see. Daniel has a question. He says, tips for fishing white sea bass in or near kelp without getting tangled more than necessary.
So that goes back to what we talked about a little bit before. Straight braid, short leader, maybe 4 foot, 5 foot max, fluoro
Oh,
leader,
okay.
or mono. And that's just because their teeth. They do have sharp teeth. So if you're fishing straight braid, they can abrade through the braid. I guess they can cut through it better. Braid doesn't do great against structure or hard like abrasion.
Yeah.
Fluoro is obviously much better. So I would do straight spectra. And then to avoid getting tangled, you need to keep the pressure on them. So as they go under each kelp strand, it's kind of like creating a new tangent, right? So it's like and then they can start spinning around the kelp strand. And once they spin around it, so you want to put enough pressure on it that they'll get hung up pretty quickly and they can't like swim free to the bottom. But you got to have that kelp cutter rig, and then having the softer action on your rod will help you so that when you do pop through the kelp stringer, you're not on a complete slack line as much.
Oh, right, because depending on the angle. Yeah, that makes sense. Like if you're here, so I'll do it on the screen here. If you're here and the fish swims out that way, wraps around the kelp stalk there, and then swims back towards you, then when it cuts through that first one, you have all the slack in between. Yeah, makes sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so, especially if you're hooked up, so many times, like I think people will give up when they break through a stringer and then they feel nothing there, right? Because it's slack line. It's like the tangent of the triangle or whatever, like you were saying, the hypotenuse.
Yeah, the hypotenuse.
And so,
oh shoot!
So you got to crank. You got to crank. If you feel you pop through the stringer, it's wind as fast as you can. Get that weight back on it as fast as you can.
So good. That's so good. Awesome. Okay, let's see. So I hope that answers your question, Daniel. Good stuff. Rodrigo, what's up? Rodrigo asks, what do you think? Do you think a Hobie Compass or Outback can handle the Hoya?
Yes and yes.
Right on. There you go. Sweet. Okay. Brian asks, let's see, safety items you bring on your kayak for fishing far away.
Fishing far away. Okay. So maybe he means like going further offshore. So in addition to the usual safety gear, I'll always have personal flotation device. That's no brainer, right? And then usually I have VHF radio on me. It's good to communicate with other fishermen in the area, but also what it's really for is to communicate with the Coast Guard or lifeguard if you need to. Yeah. So that's channel 16. So always have your radio. Usually there's a button that you can speed dial straight to 16 and call in your distress if you need to.
Perfect.
So do that, have that, and do that right away if you get in trouble out there. But outside of that, so if you have a fish finder that has a GPS, that's going to be important. You need GPS. If you don't have a fish finder that has GPS, you can try to use your cell phone, but you will get out of cell phone range pretty quickly. Yeah. I never recommend people to have their cell phone as their only means of communication, like with shore, especially if you're going way out there. So have a buddy if you're going out far, like if you're going out like the summer, you want to go out and look for the exotics, have a buddy with you, have a VHF radio. It helps out when you're further out there. Maybe have a noise making device like an air horn.
Yeah.
A flag or a whip is probably good to have as well.
And also worth noting, mentioning, I've had like some people mention that there's guys going out there without a paddle, just with their drive. Make sure you take your paddle. Even if you're going to be using your drive the whole time, have your paddle on you, because that could break on you, and then You're without a paddle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Hobies are really such amazing machines, but gosh, it really sucks when something fails.
Yeah.
So a lot of guys are rolling out there with a spare drive.
That's cool.
They have a second drive to use
Yep.
because I mean it's not a frequent thing. They're really well made, especially if you take care of them. But you know, you're sooner or later you're gonna have
It's wear and
some
tear.
minor malfunction, and
Yep.
you're kind of out of the loop. And then if you're paddling in your pro angler, then that's a workout. It's
Yeah.
good.
That's
It'll be fun for you. That's honestly,
Then you'll be sore.
for me personally, if I was going like 10 miles offshore, I would be taking my Kraken over my pro angler. But that's
Oh,
just my personal preference.
that's cool. Cool. All right. If you're gonna go from Point Loma or from the Shelter Island boat ramp to the Coronados, which kayak would you take?
I would want to take a Prowler 15.
Oh, cool. Cool.
I'd want to get a Prowler 15, but I wouldn't go from there. I would launch from further down the beach, closer to the Coronados, and go out through the surf.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that makes sense. Have you ever
Way too far, dude. It's
I
so
know.
far from. You guys know.
I know.
Probably the person's joking, but
No, that was me. That was my question. I was just joking around.
oh,
My
okay.
bad, guys. I'm sorry. Don't try to go out to the Coronados, guys. It looks really close, but it's really far. Okay.
Mothership. If someone had a boat and wanted to take kayaks out there,
Yeah.
Mothership,
That'd
I'm
be
all
such a
down for
good
that.
trip. Yeah.
I'm
That'd
all
be
down
such a
for
good
that.
trip.
Or if you like paddled out of Tijuana or like like somewhere around there, maybe I don't know. It's
Yeah.
still far. It's so far.
Yeah, good stuff. Awesome. All right, cool. Let's jump into the questions that people usually ask you, just like go through the ones you had prepared.
I get so many comments in YouTube that are like the same comment over and over. Right.
That ends tonight. I was kidding.
They always want to know exactly where the fish was caught and what the bait I was using and what the bait ate for breakfast, and they want to know all that kind of stuff. It's pretty funny. The one that I get all the time is people with the waders, the sinking waders theory.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Cool. Let's
You
talk
familiar
about
with this?
that. Yeah. But
Like
yeah. Go ahead.
people like seem to tell. I get all these people in my comments who are like, "Man, if you fall in the water with waders, you're dead, dude." Like without. Sometimes I have my PFD off, and if you go back to my older videos, there's times where I'm like not wearing it. I always have it on the boat, but
Yeah.
you should be wearing it all the time. I was a little bit younger, and I
you were
guess a
new.
little stupider. But here's the thing: like, if your waders fill up with water, right? Does that water weigh more than the rest of the water that you're in? I don't understand why waders and water equates to sinking.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. Like that, the water in your waders doesn't weigh more than the water around it, so it wouldn't
Yeah,
sink.
so
It wouldn't sink you, but it
why
would
would
make
you
it
sink?
harder to get out of the water to get back in your boat.
It might be harder to
Yes,
get back
yeah.
into your boat, but I mean, you could just take off the waders. If in my experience in the water with waders, you float with them because there's air bubbles trapped in them.
Yeah. Initially, yeah.
So
That makes sense.
the water will leak in, but you'll float for the most part.
But, so,
Like
and are you also wearing that like wader belt?
I don't wear the wading belt now.
Okay. Okay.
It's too much when you have to go to the bathroom to
Oh,
take that
yeah.
thing off.
Yeah.
I have a splash jacket on a lot of times, but like it's just the waders of death is like this myth. And so Jim Salmons did a video on this where he like put on his waders and jumped in a pool and swam around with it, and it's really funny, but it's like 10 years old. And I was thinking about doing like reviving that video as
You
like a
should.
tribute to him.
You should.
Where I'll like just jump in a pool with waders on and just see if I die.
I know a guy at the pool. I'll be your safety.
But like, dude, waders are amazing. It's such a game changer, especially if you're like sitting in a puddle of water in your kayak currently. Oh my gosh, dude, get some breathable stocking foot waders, and your experience will be like 100% better.
That's cool. That's cool. Awesome. A couple of questions came in. Do you mind doing them?
Yeah, let's try them.
Okay. John Lake, this question says, do you advise fishing with a buddy versus solo?
Yeah, so I would advise a newer person to fish with a buddy for sure. For myself, I go out pretty frequently alone, but I'm not doing like anything crazy. I'm going out like a mile or two fishing zone that I'm really comfortable with, and an area where it's like, I have contact with the radio. And if I was in a new area, or like say I was down in Mexico or something, or an area that had some like sketchy surf or big sharks, then I might be like a little more like steadfast on having to have a buddy at all times. But I do go out solo pretty frequently, and I feel pretty comfortable out there.
Perfect.
You're out there, and it's like once you're on the water, it may be one thing on the internet, but once you're on the water, it really is like kind of like a brotherhood out there.
Yeah.
And people are going to look out for you. If you get in trouble, people are going to help you out. So be in contact with people. But if you go out solo, maybe introduce yourself to someone. Try not to get in their way. You're not like coming in to like sit right next to them and be their buddy. Just wave hi, say hello. Try to like do your own thing, keep your distance, but be friendly to people, and they'll help you out there, especially if you get into a tough situation.
Cool. Awesome. That's a great point to end this interview on. Again, guys, make sure you follow Chris. He's got a YouTube channel. If you're watching this replay, it'll be linked here at the end of the show. Also, it'll be in the notes to this episode. Chris, thank you so much for jumping on here and sharing your knowledge with us. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
I had a great time. Hey, thanks for letting me talk to your audience.
No, it's super fun. Super awesome of you. I'm gonna take some of this advice to heart. I want to go back and watch this episode myself, because there's a ton of knowledge there you dropped on us. And again, really appreciate it so much. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
All right, guys. Let's wrap this show up. I'll close the show out and see. Go ahead and wave goodbye. Oh yeah, chug.
Pliny, so good.
All right, guys. Let me wrap this show up. I'll talk to you in a second, Chris.
Thanks, Roman.
All right, here we go. Main screen. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Fishy Hour. Again, thank you so much to Chris for jumping on here and sharing the knowledge with us, and just super cool dude. How awesome was that episode? One of my favorites. Let's wrap the show up. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed Fishy Hour. Again, we're doing interviews on Thursday. I will post up who our next guest is on Monday in our Facebook group. Mad Max Fishing Club is a Facebook group that is affiliated with our group. And also, we have a Discord server where we can jump on and talk about the previous episodes. Basically, the Discord server is a continuation of the show while I'm not live, okay? Also, remember, guys, we have On the Bay with CCA on Saturday. So if you haven't signed up, you're getting real close to the deadline. The deadline is tomorrow, I think, to sign up. So please sign up if you're going. For more info on that, go to ccacalifornia.org. Yeah. Do me a favor, hit that like button before you guys take off, and I will jump into the Discord in about 5 minutes, and we can talk about the show, talk about any additional things that you had that maybe didn't get posted. So thanks again for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll see you guys tomorrow, Friday, for Trivia Night. Trivia Night starts at, the show always starts at 7, so join us for Trivia Night. I will be giving away a shirt, or a voucher for a shirt, on shop.romancaster.com. And I'm thinking about maybe 12 questions will be the day. So we're doing 4 quarters, 3 questions each, and it'll be fun. Brian asked, what's the Discord? The Discord is romancaster.com/MMFC. Let me see if I can type it out before the music runs out. http://www.romancastro.com/MMFC. I think I got it. Okay. Brian, there's a link there. You're going to click on that link. It's going to take you to the invitation page. You click on that, download the Discord app, and you can jump on there with us, and it's basically like a group call. Okay? All right, guys. Thank you for joining us. Have a great night. I'm going to put Chris back on the screen real quick so we can wave goodbye. Let's see. Split screen. All right, there we go. Good night, guys. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, guys.
Perfect. All right, cool. There's a little bit of a delay between